Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Bloody Monday, at least 4 people murdered in the last 24 hours. Gregory Park community in St. Catharines still a major concern for the police. And later in sports, magnificent century from West Indies women's captain leads them to series leveling victory. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shamela Pula and here are the details. We begin with the latest from the One Don gang trial where up until news time, Chief Justice Brian Sykes had begun the sentencing proceedings. Now leader of the criminal organization, Andre Blackman Bryan, was removed from courtroom. The court was told that it appears Bryan had a health issue. Bryan was seen pumping and pointing to his chest. After a short period, he returned. Meanwhile, the first of the 15 convicts had been sentenced. Tom Taylor, who was convicted of being part of a criminal organization, had been sentenced to 9.5 years in prison. In handing down the sentence, the Chief Justice says he took into consideration the over 5 years he's been in police custody. The other 14 gang members will know their fate when the sentencing resumes. The St. Andrew police are still trying to piece together the circumstances which led to the murder of a woman and her daughter along Spanish Town Road Monday morning. As we hear in this report from Jamaica Maitland, the duo was selling breakfast at their usual spot.
Now, the tire markings are still evident where Sophia Drummond would have parked her vehicle for the last time. Now, she was selling breakfast outside the National Solid Waste Management's location here on Spanish Town Road, and it's where she'd normally do it with her daughter. However, according to police reports, just about 5 o'clock this morning, loud explosions were heard, and Miss Sophia and her daughter were found. Now, her daughter was in the front of the vehicle while she was standing outside.
Let me also use this opportunity to appeal to anyone who may have information with regards to this incident to get in touch with the detectives at the Hunts Bay CIB at 876-923-7111.
Meanwhile, the police were called to yet another scene of a double murder, this time in Macook-Spen, St. Catherine. The victims have been identified as 55-year-old Darren Keppel of a Macook-Spen address and his common-law wife, Angela Weatherburn, from West Kingston. The man and his partner, who were vendors at the Coronation Market, were at the bus stop waiting for transportation when they were attacked by gunmen around 3 o'clock Monday morning. However, it wasn't until about 6 o'clock that residents stumbled upon the bodies and called the police. When the police arrived on the scene, the bodies were found face down with what appeared to be multiple gunshot wounds. It's believed that the gunmen took the victims behind the bus stop where they were killed. The St. Catharines South Police Division remains concerned about crime in the Gregory Park community. Speaking at a police sensitization meeting recently, the police say young people continue to be the main perpetrators of crime in the area.
A community, while this community has a lot of law-abiding, hard-working citizens, it also have a few persons who decide that they are going to go in another direction. And sometimes we have challenges down here. We are also grateful for the support of our stakeholders. Looking at the concept and the preamble that I saw here, I am just hoping that the message will reach to the persons who are out there to understand that there are options.
The police are optimistic that further dialogue can be beneficial to the community.
The concept of things that are in the Zozo, you don't have to establish a Zozo to have some of the concept, to build out, to reach out to some of the parents, some of the young men. I know most of you know that a lot of our crimes are committed by young men between 14 and 26. You're talking about more than 60% of the crimes. And that's a high percentage. So if we can reach to some of these young men with some of these empowering speeches and showing them a different way, it may be possible that we may kind of change the next generation.
To other news now, there is growing disquiet among some farmers in Clarendon. They feel moves are being made to silence their representatives on the board of the Jamaica Agricultural Society. The details in this report from Karen Simpson.
An association in turmoil. It is how some stakeholders in Clarendon have described the JAS. And according to some of the farmers, it is now having an impact on them.
The farmers of Clarendon, we are dealing with farming. We are not dealing with politics. This is not no politics thing. This is farming.
They say angry and uncertain farmers mean lower output, which is bad news for consumers as it could mean food shortages and increased cost for produce. Andre Anderson is the president of the Clarendon chapter of the JAS. He says most of their troubles stem from the uncertainty around the leadership and if they will get a chance soon to elect a new leadership group. They have not had an AGM since 2021. Efforts to do so a few months ago failed.
To have the members, the delegates to travel from the length and breadth of Jamaica. People would have come from Hanover, Westmoreland, St. Thomas, Portland. They would have to wake up very early to get here for 10 o'clock. And they would have traveled to come here. The JAS would have expended monies for, to host the meeting. There were arrangements in place for PA system. There were arrangements in place for media. There was arrangement in place for refreshment, and all of that.
In fact, since then, Mr. Anderson's authority on the JAS board has been facing opposition from a current member of the board, and Mr. Anderson's constituents are not happy. Any effort to disenfranchise him, they say, will be opposed.
We are voting Mr. Andre Anderson as our president, and he's there to represent us at the board level.
It is the delegates of Clarendon that have voted for me 27-7. 27 delegates have voted for me and 7 had voted for the opponent. For me to become the president of Clarendon. And by virtue of becoming president, the person who is supposed to sit at the board is, in my view and by way of what I have read from the Constitution, is at liberty to accept me as the representative from Clarendon and respect the wish of the farmers of Clarendon.
There have been 2 separate legal matters brought before the court intended to help resolve the issues at the JAS. However, the group's future is no clearer. Karen Simpson, TVJ News.
It's time for a break. Stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. The Ministry of Education today announced the appointment of Ms. Laurette Adams-Thomas as the new Chief Executive Officer of the Child Protection and Family Services, CPFSA. She replaces Rosalie Gage Gray, who was removed from the post after an adverse report from the Office of the Children's Advocate. Mrs. Adams-Thomas is the former General Manager of the Golden Age Home, where she served in the position for 8 years. Prior to that, she was the Interim Executive Director of the National Children's Registry. And Justice Minister Delroy Chuck is warning new and existing justices of the peace against accepting payments for their services. During an installation ceremony in Kingston and St. Andrew yesterday, Mr. Chuck encouraged the JPs not to spoil the goodwill status of what a justice of the peace represents.
Have some JPs who from the get the JP, they're looking to see how they can earn from it. That's not what the justice of the peace is about. We're trying to find those who set up office, especially in car trunk, at tax office and all over Kingston and St. Andrew, providing service and charging. That's not what a JP is about.
Charge the JPs that their integrity is worth far more than bribery and they should protect the office they have been called to.
Don't even think of charging. And when people come and you sign a document, witness a document for them, or you provide a reference for them, and they offer you money, be it 10 or 20,000, tell them no. To every single one of you, you're worth much more than that.
A stern warning to justices of the peace to be careful and diligently peruse documents they are given to sign and affix their seal. The charge comes after Justice of Westmoreland, Reverend Hartley Perrin, at the commissioning service of GPs in the parish. He says far too long now, GPs have been given a bad name due to the behavior of a few. He pointed to a Jamaica Gleaner article which showed several GPs flouting the law by charging for their services and lining letters of recommendation for complete strangers. In one instance, a female reporter was sexually harassed.
To be a functioning JP in these times can be demanding and exhaustive. It is not the role for the faint-hearted, but for the responsible and fair-minded person who sees the need to change and build our Jamaica.
He further noted that not because an individual is known to you means that you must sign.
Be careful of how you verify passport. It's easy. One man, you've known him all his life as John Brown, B-R-O-W-N. But he run into a little problem with B-R-O-W-N as a criminal. So what do you think him do? He add a little E.
A total of 30 new GPs were commissioned in the ceremony to serve the parish. It's now time for the Business Minute.
GDP output for Jamaica's agriculture, forestry and fishing industry continues to be hit by drought conditions. For the April to June period, the Statistical Institute of Jamaica, Statin, says the real value added for the sector was down by 8.1% compared to the same period in 2022. The significantly reduced yields and delayed land preparation and planting of domestic crops was linked to the lower outturn. Statin says an 8.9% lower production in other agricultural crops, which includes animal farming, forestry and fishing, was observed. Further afield, major oil and gas companies met on Sunday in a bid to come up with a firm commitment to reduce carbon emissions ahead of a United Nations Climate Summit next month. The aim to get major industry players to make decarbonization commitments that would help limit global warming. The COP28 summit is scheduled to take place in Dubai between November 30 and December 12. It is seen as a crucial opportunity for governments to accelerate action to limit global warming, with reports so far showing countries are off track to meet promises to limit the rise in global temperatures to 1.5 degrees Celsius. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Prince Moore.
Time now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, a tropical storm watch has been issued for sections of the Caribbean as Tropical Storm Philip is on track to pass near the northern Leeward Islands later today. The National Hurricane Center NHC said the storm is located about 125 miles east-southeast of Bermuda and could bring heavy rains and flooding. While the tropical storm watch remains in effect for Antigua and Barbuda, the NHC said other sections of the northern Leeward Islands should monitor the system for the rest of the week. On the international scene, at least 10 people, including 3 children, are dead after the roof of a church collapsed in northern Mexico yesterday. Around 100 people were attending a baptism at a church in Tamaulipas when the tragedy occurred. 60 people were injured, at least 2 of them seriously, and dozens trapped beneath the rubble. And Republican Matt Gaetz has announced plans to attempt to oust U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy after the House leader worked with Democrats to avoid a government shutdown over the weekend. In a broadcast interview yesterday, the Florida Republican said Mr. McCarthy was in breach of agreements he made with House Republicans in January when he ran for the post of Speaker. And those are the top regional and international stories. I'm Carrie Simpson.
We head to a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your midday sports report with Jordan Fort.